boys pink, blue, and girls pink. Gotta look for some pink mice over here. This is Grandma's room.
Grandma's room back there.
Grandma's here.
Okay.
And then this is the girls. Or this is all the girls, I think, probably.
Yeah.
Grandma's bunked with them. Sleep tight, that's good bed. And in this, if you remember, I said this was the 1812 house. We just stepped into it again. So the gentlemen are coming through. That was a window there originally.
Oh, the door?
The door was a window to match the window over here. When it became an Indian agency, what they did was they put a wall on this side. They left the window. They actually pushed a bookcase up against it out in the hallway out there and nailed it in. So you could not pass between here like we just did. That was just opened up for the public. So for the Johnstons, this was a completely cut off area reached only by that tiny little staircase outside the dining room. If you saw the girls' stair that went up, it comes up in the back corner. So I'd say the modern day term of lockdown works there. If you've got 9 lovely young daughters growing up and you have 2,200 soldiers outside, you have to shoot them up the staircase and you locked it at the bottom. And then you lock this half too. So
Is this a baby crib back in
away.
those days?
This is a toddler bed.
Toddler bed.
Yeah, the baby crib was in the parents' room, which was smaller and had, actually, you saw the bolts on the side of it. That was to put roping across the top, keep the baby in. This one has no footboard on it. So this one is actually for a child that's old enough to crawl out and crawl back in. And they said they would frequently have these in the kitchen because mom didn't have to stop to pick the baby up. Baby could just come in and out on their own. So this we call Grandma's room. That was John Johnston's mother, and she was named Elizabeth, and she had lived in Philadelphia at the same time John did. His parents and his brothers and sister came over 5 years after he did. He came over with a family friend and stayed that time as a young man getting his career started between 12 and 17, if you can imagine. So he was here, mom came, dad died, and then eventually mom, 4 brothers, sister, all followed John out here. They all settled in the Miami and Shelby County areas, and they became his network for hauling goods. He'd had a lot of graft and corruption out at Fort Wayne to deal with, and he didn't want that here, so he used his brothers. Got in trouble for it, but he used his brothers because he knew he could trust them. So Grandma just kind of went from house to house to house to house. I think Rachel, with 14 children, probably just going, you know, come here, please. And actually, when her mother-in-law died, Rachel said she just didn't know what she was going to do. So she had been a tremendous help. They had one of those mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationships that was very close. So it's kind of cool. So girls' room here, also maybe Grandma's room. My personal thinking is when you originally could lock this down, this might have just been family quarters. And then as they got girl after girl after girl after girl after girl, it probably became the girls' quarters. Did you guys find your mouse?
Yeah.
No, okay.
I have a question.
Where at?
We have questions.
Yep.
Is this
Up on the
original?
dressers? Oh,
That's
okay.
original.
So all the furniture.
The furniture is all original to the time.
Okay,
It's not original to the family, but it's original to the time.
okay. Now,
So,
are these doors plumbed?
are they what?
Plumbed?
I don't know, what does that mean?
Square.
When you
Oh.
shut them, there's no whole lot of light come through.
Not much,
I just wondered, because I know Huber didn't build this house.
I had a question, besides decorative, was there any purpose in that netting?
The
above
reason
that
the
bed?
mouse is up there, just by the mouse,
Yeah, I see the mouse.
if you see, in England, Ireland, Scotland, and Wales, they have thatched roofs. Things like to sleep in the thatch, and mice is one of them. So supposedly that is a mouse net. So
Wow.
it would be used to protect you from the mice dropping out of the ceiling.
Wow.
of your bed.
But it would still slide through this little
But
net
think
in
of their
there.
little feet. What they
Yeah.
do is they grab anything. So their little feet would grab that and would walk down it and supposedly not hit you. That's also where our expression raining cats and dogs supposedly comes from. Cats and dogs like to sleep in the thatch up on the eaves, and when it would start to rain, they would jump down because they didn't want to get wet. So no proof of that, but that's the most accepted meaning of that, is that it was raining cats and dogs, because when it started to rain, the cats and dogs dropped on you in the
Wow.
house. Okay, well, come on in here.
This is the last room in the house that we haven't
one
seen.
more after this. We have a
Okay.
kitchen. And are more of you folks heading to the boat after this? Have you been to the boat already?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys heading to the boat? Okay. We'll be out in plenty of time. time. And also, I give them a call. Let them make that. Okay, so this would have been the main girls' room, and they actually did have 8 here at one time from age 2 to 22. So just get a picture of that in your head. 8 girls. Also, mom, grandma. They actually, we found out just about 4 years ago that they raised an Indian girl. John refers to her as she's living in my family, and we have raised her from a child. So her name was Polly Shadley, and she was here. So that's another girl, daughter, that might have been here. They had several orphan girls that were teenagers who lived here during the War of 1812. They were probably working in the kitchen and got their room and board. So you could have had like 14 girls up here. One of my favorite stories of Julia is she's relating about her wedding. She's marrying Jefferson Patterson in 1833. So this is the wedding of the century. You know, he's the big catch out of Dayton. So she said, well, you know, Pa's supposed to tell us whether or not Mrs. McCorkle's coming, but we can't find him. We think he deserted. So here's all these women preparing for a wedding, and Pa apparently went out with the Indians. He decided he couldn't take it. So I think it's kind of funny. If you think of all the women here in this poor man, because he had 3 little boys in the middle, one at the beginning and one at the end. I mean, basically it was pretty much just him and a household of women, which is what my husband's always had. So the little staircase in the corner there is the one that goes down to the kitchen. Eventually it goes down outside the dining room, and then you go around the corner and you go down the kitchen. So the girls would come up there into this half of the house, and like I said, there's a lock at the bottom of it. So you could lock them in if you wanted to. Elizabeth is the one on the far side up there, and then Julia on this side. So that is
Sorry
the
about
young
that.
ladies that grew up in the house here. And there are some photos by the wall also of them as they advanced in years. In daguerreotype photography, you did not smile because you had to hold the smile for like 2 minutes. So people always look really sober. However, the two of them looked kind of beyond sober to sour. So I think they were having some tough times. Elizabeth had actually lost 4 little girls in, I think, 3 years to diseases that came with the river and the boat and all that kind of thing. She lived in Cincinnati. And then she had 4 sons fighting in the Civil War. So she probably has a reason to look a little sour in that bottom one there. And then Julia had just gone through that decade where her 7 brothers and sisters and her mother and all of them had died. So we didn't get them at their best point, I don't think. But you guys got a question about anything in here that you wonder about? Funny looking? Okay, if not, you guys do know what the pots are on the floor for, right?
The what?
Pot
The
on
chamber
floor.
pot.
Yes.
Chamber pot, the room pot.
Chamber pot.
We have a kitchen to see yet. We have no bathroom. This is right back here. We have no bathroom. So
Oh,
the
okay.
bathroom was an outhouse. If you guys could not flush your toilet, would you want it in the house?
No.
No. So they had no plumbing, couldn't flush, so they used the outhouse. They planted lilies around it, and the ladies would say, I'm gonna go visit the lilies. Go to the bathroom. I wasn't allowed to say I was going to the bathroom when I was a little girl either. You had to come up with some excuse. And so this was then used at 3 o'clock in the morning when you had nothing else to do. You guys lucked out because that was a girl's job to empty that. So, you know, if there were no girls, then you were in trouble. But if there were girls, you probably didn't have to do it. But you got to clean out the stalls.
With a lot of people in this room, I bet there was more than one chamber.
I would imagine there probably were 2. And you know, somebody said to me, well, did they have one for number 1 and one for number 2? And I said, well, you know, in a way, maybe that's where 1 and 2 comes from. However, the one book I read that was way too graphic about all this stuff, they said that when the urine went in, it would keep the other from sticking. So,
That's too much information.
I could go on for a day about this.
Thank you for not doing so.
Yeah.
There's a few of us in here that actually had outhouses.
I used one when up until I was 6 years old, I used one, because my great uncle had one. And I was so puzzled because it had 2 holes. And I just always thought, somebody gonna go to the bathroom with me? Well, now I realize probably one of them was an adult one and one was a kid one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I didn't catch that at that time, because we have the one out here that we actually use, that's all we have. And we have a potty seat, because the kids fall in, so.
That's not good.
We don't have to use it. You know what George Washington had? He had an 8-seater. I just think that's all. I think the business of our government was
Going down to
conducting
the
that.
outhouse, everybody won't come with me. Sit around and talk war strategy.
Okay, we're gonna go way down.
Attic, no access. That's interesting.
Go ahead, man. I'm gonna be very, very slow.
Oh, you showing us the kitchen now? Oh, it's out here?
We go down, this is the spiral staircase, and we just don't take that.
Okay.
What we do is we go around.
Okay.
I'll show you where it comes down. Something else.
No, keep the larder? What was,
Well, what we do here is we let the kids play. And so
Okay.
that's just the supplies with coffee and sugar, because we go
Okay.
through a lot of coffee and sugar. That's something the other thing. Okay, in here it is,
hold on, get over here.
you don't
where
need a
it's at.
map, find the mousetrap. They gotta find the mousetrap. And it is a 170-year-old mousetrap. Does not look like a modern one, it's made out of wood, and it's pretty big.
This was the kitchen. Does they have the stove in here?
They didn't have a stove at this time. Stove came about 1840 or so in this house. So they just had the open hearth like what we've got.
Open hearth, oh, right
I'll
there.
tell you in just a second. Okay, well, this is the winter kitchen. So the Johnsons had two. They had a summer kitchen and a winter kitchen. It's rather unusual to have an inside kitchen. When they came here to do the reconstruction, they said they thought this level down here was probably an office. What they did was there was a wall over here that was way too thick. The walls are 5 bricks thick, this one was like 10 bricks thick. So they came inside and they pulled the wall down, and John Carpenter said there was sand. And they just watched the sand go down like this, and behind it was this big black wall. And he said they were just completely confused. Well, number one, the hill is a leach bed. We have 9 springs in this hill. So it's sand and pebbles and water is really all it is. So the sand had come up behind it, all those years behind that wall. He said they then noted the hook, which allows this crane to pivot, and the hook is original. And so that told them that this had been a kitchen, because you wouldn't have had a crane like this for any other reason. Then in looking at the brickwork, they were able to see that there had not been painted behind and that this pegging had run all the way around the room here. So this is a pretty close approximation as far as they could figure it out by the way the floorboards were cut. They were able to tell how big the hearth was. He said they had never had a fire in their kitchen, never caught the floor on fire. That's probably because of this huge white thing here. Because if you cook back here,
Oh, the hearth was right here?
yeah, if you cook here, your sparks aren't going to hit the floor.
Yeah, that's true.
If you cook out here, they're liable to. So this is really wide and very good. Obviously, the poor woman had to cook way too much because of this thing. But again, Mrs. Johnson, Julia said, my mother did not like to live among the Indians, and she wouldn't let us learn their languages because she thought we were already barbarians enough. So Mrs. Johnson was trying to keep her children civilized in a very uncivilized world. So I think she had an inside kitchen because you could close the door and keep the world out again. If you think about it, during the War of 1812, during the Council of Piqua, there were 2,200 soldiers camped around this house.
Wow.
So, 2 times, they went to Fort Wayne, they saved it, they came back here, they went to Detroit. So, at the same time, Mr. Johnson had brought almost 1,000 Indians in for the Council of Piqua, same month, same time. So, within the proximity of Piqua, you had probably 1,500 Indians and 2,200 soldiers. So, Mrs. Johnson, her one read between the lines complaint is that she never had her family to herself. There was always somebody else here, and I think this place was just so busy. It's part of why I think he went to Cincinnati when he got to be an old man. It was busy and bustling. It was too quiet here. All that was gone. So this is their root cellar back here, which was where they would keep root vegetables like carrots and potatoes and things like that. It's just our office now, but that's where they would have that. This is the staircase upstairs to the dining room. The big table's right up above your heads over here. And then this, they now believe is Mr. Johnson's office. They discovered that about 12 years ago. So they now also believe all 3 of these should be doors instead of windows. In the house, of the life of the house, they were doors and windows, doors and windows, doors and windows. I think somebody tossed a coin, they made them windows, now they know they should be doors. If you think about the amount of food and wood in this room, in and out, in and out, in and out, who needs a window? And then also in there, that would allow the men to go along the courtyard and walk into his office without again crossing through the area where the girls were. So in the office, we do have some things the kids can pick up and touch on the little table. On this side, there's a case with more items that belong to the Johnsons, plus 2 pictures of Mr. Johnson inside the case in his 70s. One on the top, he's about 83 there. So you're welcome to go in there and look. And you guys have probably got time to do this if you want to. What we do here is we grind coffee and we pound sugar like the kids would have had to do for Mrs. Johnson. So if I wanted a cup of coffee, Coffee had to come from South America, had to go to England, had to go on a ship across.
Mr. Johnston's
America,
office.
Had to go on a wagon from the coast out here out west. It was expensive, the whole thing. And so it came in bean form. So after I did all that just to get my coffee, I had to put the coffee in a grinder and then take it. The kids last time were just laughing. They were like, "Wow, your kitchen was really noisy, wasn't it?" So you grind it, and then the coffee comes out in there. And then you can dump that in there for me if you want to. And then sugar came all wrapped up like this in what was called a sugar cone. So it was a liquid sugar poured into a mold, and when you unwrapped it, it looked like that. I can't put that in my coffee, can I? So you would take your mallet, break it into pieces, and then you took your sugar nippers, which are hiding from me, and you take those bigger pieces and take this and nip off more pieces. You finally ended up with something very much like a sugar cube. You guys that are older know what sugar cubes are. So what we do down here is we use a sugar cube. I'll give you guys a few if you want to do it. And you put the sugar in the mortar and pestle, and you pound it, round it, and then I have sugar.
Wow.
So this was used for grinding spices. I always say this is probably the most important thing in the kitchen other than the kids that powered it. So you're welcome to do that if you'd like to. I'll put some sugar cubes out for you, and you can grind some coffee if you want to. These bottles at the end are vinegars and oils and things, which are one's made out of violet, 2 out of rose, and 1 out of fennel. So if you're curious about those, you can pick those up and sniff them. If you're going to go to the boat, I'd say probably about 5 minutes. You probably need to head down that way. And I will give Diana a call telling her you're heading down. So you guys have been through the boat already, right? Okay.
I have a question. There's a phrase called pound salt. Does that refer to pounding salt? And
So leaving 5 minutes if you're going back to the boat again.
Yeah, I would presume so. I wasn't sure.
What time is it right now? It's
It's about quarter after.
okay.
Not quite quarter after. My favorite one is too many irons in the fire, because of course you have the sad irons. You have like 8 or 9 of them heating. Pick it up, this one got cold, put it down, pick up the next one, put that one down, the next one.
Oh, there's already in there. So you hold on there.
Too many irons in the fire.
Right, and you grind
So
like
that's
that.
The boat's down
Like that, and it'll flip over underneath.
And then for you guys, when you're done up here, have you been to the spring house yet?
No, we've been.
Okay, well, down the hill where the spring house is, you just cross the hill and you'll see that. My coworker.
Now, what's this other building besides the spring house that's
This one out here, that's the cider house.
cider house?
Yeah, the last building that was built here was the cider house. It was gone, so they had a.
So this is the spring house right here?
No, this is the summer kitchen.
Summer kitchen,
That's the cider house.
cider
The
house,
barn.
and the
And
barn.
then you go through that building down to that one that's down by the water, and that's the spring house, because it utilizes the spring. that runs-
Spring house?
Yeah,
So
spring
that's
house
that's
is
close to where the Indian Mound is?
No, it's actually right behind here. Remember the building you can see
Yeah.
right there? That's the spring house.
Okay,
So it's right down the hill here.
at the,
And
okay.
you cross through.
Is there, I'm assuming there's a marker for that probably?
Yeah, my
near the
coworker's
Indian
down.
Mound?
Oh, for the Indian Mound?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's out behind the barn, and there's a marker way at the back by the barn.
I'll probably get that after the next boat tour. I want to take the boat toward the direction I haven't already went yet.
It's cool this way. I like it this way best, because I love coming past the house.
Oh, you mean on the canal?
Yeah, the boat will come past the house.
Oh, you can see you can see it from the house?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, if you come up
Wow.
I'll show you.
Wow.
Yeah, and we have a letter.
I'm gonna continue
Mrs.
this one.
Johnston talks about standing in the doorway and watching them build the canal. So we know she was standing.
Oh, it's right down here. Yeah.
Spring house.
And the
Down
canal's right down there. Wow.
Right out the water, where the upper path is, not the lower path. That's just a car path.
Is there a canal lock on this side too?
A canal what?
Because there a canal
Oh, the
lock
lock,
back there is on the other
Yeah,
side.
the lock is up there. But
Yeah,
have
I
you
s-
been to Lockington?
You actually know what? I actually rode up to the dam to get videos of the dam earlier, but
I tell you,
Have you-
if you haven't been there, they just redid the first lock there, the highest one. We rededicated it last summer. It is
Okay.
one of the most impressive things I've ever seen.
so this is the spring house.
Yeah,
Uh,
cider house, and then the barn, and And this is the summer kitchen closest to us.
So spring house, summer kitchen, and the other one is the barn, or is there another
The
one?
barn is way far out, and then that little one with the cupola on it that you can just barely see there, that's the cider house.
Cider house.
And that was for storage of hard and soft.
Do they have a map in the office that shows all the building landmarks? 'Cause I might forget by then, but
We have some from some of our events. They may still have that there. I don't know if they have anything else. It's one I put together actually for our events.
so
Diana. But if not,
so
I can.
spring house, outdoor
Summer kitchen.
summer kitchen, and then the cider house,
And then the barn.
and then the barn, and then the Indian mound down there.
The barn, the Indian mound's right behind the barn.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, because I'm definitely going to come back through
well,
for
if
that.
you see me again, if you need me to, I can just do you a quick little sketch and write it on the barn for you.
Or I'll ask if they have one there too. Well, yeah, because I'm going to try and get a video of the inside of the museum, then do this the last.
Well, we're up till 5.
Yeah. And it'll probably be around 4:30 when I leave. All right, thank you. I mean, feel free to type in Johnston Farm on YouTube and share these videos. Yeah, so I mean, I really think it'd be great to